Today, on the Shrew Dudes podcast Thursday live stream, we are late. We understand that. It's not my fault.
Admonish.
It's not my fault. It's entirely a tech issue.
No,
That's not.
Stephen,
Yep.
it is your fault. You know why? Can I give you a solid, like, actual compelling reason why it is your fault? Because you're wearing a Toronto jerseys, like Toronto Maple Leafs jersey, and that's screwed with the mojo, man.
Leafs are going to win.
Yeah.
There's 1 minute left in the game, and
You
the
know
Leafs are
what?
going to win.
I think that is one of the most important things to be a Leaf fan. You have to, like,
You have to have faith.
naivety. You have to have a level of naivety. Yeah.
But anyways, in today's episode, in This Week in Satire, we're going to talk about the upsides of nuclear war. Are you prepared?
Not yet.
Not yet, but you will be.
I will
In
be.
the rant of the week, we're going to talk about that whole Pfizer debacle and the reaction to the unvaccinated by our new premier.
Unfortunate.
Well, no. I thought she did fine.
Unfortunate, the reaction.
The reaction was unfortunate, yes.
The reaction was very unfortunate.
And nothing to see here. We're going to talk about euthanasia and how physicians are losing the public trust. And then finally, in our douche of the week, we are going to talk about a woman who desecrates the memorial for Ashley Babbitt. All of that and more on the Shrewd Dudes podcast. You shush. All right. So we are back for another live stream.
Okay.
We apologize for those who wanted to watch us on Facebook.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to happen today. Usually we use a program called Restream. Their servers are down today. They did not make some sort of public service announcement that they were going to be down today. So one streaming service today, and that is Twitch, because Twitch gets the most responses, the most feedback.
Yeah.
But I will be posting the video to all of our regular platforms later.
So, Stephen, what's the link for people if they want to, be able to watch?
If they want to be able to watch on Twitch, our link on Twitch is twitch.tv/ShrewDudesPodcast.
/ShrewDudesPodcast?
Yep. And the Leafs have won.
Well, Stephen, it's important to keep those small victories.
I know.
Gotta keep the faith alive.
We are going to be number one in the East. We're going to be number one in the East this year.
Seriously? Oh, boy.
We deserve it.
Speaking of
I have been long suffering.
Out of touch with reality.
Anyways, if you wish to comment or have questions or any of that sort of thing during the show, please do not hesitate. We are going to try and respond to everything in a reasonable time frame. So let us have it. Bring it on. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, with all that being said, shall we jump into the first story of This Week in Satire?
I say we should. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, let's do that before we get too sidetracked by the Leafs winning.
All right,
All right, so 9 upsides of a nuclear apocalypse. Nuclear. Yep. So Biden is warning of a coming nuclear apocalypse, but don't worry. A thermonuclear war that wipes out most life on the planet wouldn't be all bad. Let's look on the bright side, shall we? Here are 9 great upsides of a nuclear apocalypse. We'll do 1, 2, 1, 2. You never have to go to IKEA again. Never again, where you have to navigate a labyrinthian hellscape of cheap furniture and meatballs. Yay! Labyrinthian hellscape.
That's a decent word. It's almost it's like, on Kill Bill, it's like gargantuan. Like, this is a good word. I'm going to take number 2. Number 2, you have this cool extra arm growing out of your shoulder now. You can multitask. It reminds me of that episode of Family Guy when Stewie grows becomes like a squid monster or whatever, that destroys the whole town. I'm like, hey, that would be a good way to take over. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Yep. Sorry.
You're
Flash
not.
from the explosion will burn out your eyes, so you won't be able to have to see whatever Lizzo does next. Praise be.
That is true. I
That
don't
is
have to
that's a
squint my eyes.
major upside.
That is very true. Very true.
Major upside.
Super upside. Number 4, your friends who made fun of you for keeping all your DVDs will be jealous since all the streaming services are down now. Who's laughing now?
Yeah.
Who's laughing now, Mom?
In your face.
In your face, you fools. I'm going to go watch Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Ha! That's a good movie.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to watch a whole bunch of other movies. Even though, every time we go to my aunt's, we turn on the DVD player because I have a DVD player in my van.
Okay.
Wonderful addition for the children.
Nice.
Keeps them quite distracted.
It's true.
It is true.
It's basically Hypnotoad. Is what you're doing.
Oh, so before we go, I'm like, all right, let's pick out a movie. And there's a few kids movies in that selection, but every single time they always pick Star Wars, and I'm just like,
Really?
I have done well.
Which Star Wars?
Well, the first time they picked Empire,
Okay.
and on Monday they picked A New Hope.
Wow, your kids are moving up to the deep movies. That's impressive.
Well,
I would have thought they'd be stuck on Clone Wars or the anime series.
I don't
or
have
something like that.
any of the DVDs for that.
That's terrible.
They
What
would
kind of
choose that if
parent are
that
you?
was an option.
What kind of father are you? You don't have the cartoon animated versions. Your kids are gonna
Not
grow
on
up,
DVD.
well, they're not hard to get.
I will look into that.
I'll let you borrow them next time I see you.
You have the DVDs for the Clone Wars series?
Not the series, but the Clone Wars, the Genndy Tartakovsky, the 2-part Clone Wars saga.
The movie?
Yeah, there's I don't know if it's a movie. It's basically
the Samurai
animated.
Jack series.
No. This is an actual literal.
I know, but it's in the
Clone
art
Wars.
style of Samurai Jack.
Sure. Yeah,
I know
that
what you're
kind of
talking
stuff.
about. Yes.
Yeah, probably the best Star
It's
Wars.
like the one where
cartoon
Mace
ever.
Windu takes on 600
Yes.
droids at once.
It was the most phenomenal Jedi scene ever made.
Yes,
Seriously,
it was great.
It was amazing. Yeah.
All right. So number 5, everyone will agree with how terrible Biden was at last unity in America.
Unity. Number 6, no more climate change. More importantly, no more Swedish teens lecturing you on climate change. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, praise be.
Praise be, I will dare. I will dare. Take that.
Yep.
Take it away, man.
Number
7.
7.
Comes
You'll
after 6.
finally feel vindicated for spending $7,000 on a chicken coop and raising chickens. Eggs are the new currency, so you're rich.
All hail Tim Pool. All hail.
All hail Tim Pool.
Okay.
It's
He's
all on
always-
the internets with Putlocker. Except in a nuclear apocalypse, there is no Putlocker conquer worm.
Number 8. Well, by the way, Tim Pool always suggests to people they should live off the grid, more in.
Mhm.
But that everyone should get chickens, and I'm not totally against that. I'm like,
Oh no.
chickens
It's a
are a
great
very
idea.
good currency because not only can you get eggs every day, but also chickens will just naturally reproduce, and you just have this nonstop collection of chickens and of eggs. So it's actually not a bad way to go. Number 8, the 750 hours you sank into the Fallout franchise won't have gone to waste.
Will finally have meaning.
You've been training for this your whole life. My mom said my video game
Addiction
knowledge will never-
wouldn't take me
never come-
anywhere.
Wouldn't take me anywhere.
But it saved my life.
Who's laughing now, Mom? Who's laughing
Exactly. Who's laughing now?
now? Oh, Mama.
I've played actually
And
about
final.
probably 350, 400 hours into Fallout. It is a lot of fun.
Oh, there's very little hope for you, Stephen.
I know.
All right.
Number 9, you'll finally have time. All the time in the
Oh,
world.
the time in the world.
Time to enjoy all your Tuttle Twins books. Now, where were your glasses? Oh no. You stepped
Correct.
on them.
Oh no.
Yep. So that is this week in satire.
Hmm.
because the Babylon Bee
Is the bomb.
every time,
The
every
bomb.
time,
The bomb. They
always
rock it.
fantastic, always great.
Hmm.
And there are so many. Every time we look at the Babylon Bee, there's like 5 stories which we want to do,
Yeah.
but we just don't have the time or energy to do it.
But it's good because what the Babylon Bee does is something that the left cannot do. The left cannot find things funny because they don't have levity. They everything is like the end of the world topic, and they don't know how to laugh, which is why the left can't meme. It's also why the left can't be funny because
Mm-hmm.
they're too scared of
Yep.
offending someone, and
Mm-hmm.
they're just always I don't know.
No,
So it's
Conquer
great.
Worm, you have a great. It is a good idea to have extra storage space in your hard drives.
Very important. Very important. In case
See,
of
if
the end
I
of the
ever get
world.
bored, I have 300 and like probably 500 hours of episodes of Sure Dudes podcast to go through.
Now the only question is, where will you plug the computer in to watch all this stuff? So gotta think
Well,
about that.
you still need a power to run a DVD player, so potato,
Yep,
tomato.
that's right.
But it's a good point.
Yep, it's like the a comic somebody showed me a while ago. Like these two people like find a time machine. They're like, "Hey, let's go back in time." And they go down the prehistoric era. And they're like, "This is so cool!" Like, okay, time to go back. And the guy looks at the thing. And it's like the plug that comes off the machine has nothing to plug into. I'm like, oh dang, he did not
Mm-hmm.
think that one through. He did not think that one through. Because I mean, I will admit, if I was in that situation, you had to create the power source. I'm like, I don't know how I do that. Like, I legitimately would not know the first thing about how to actually.
Oh, you just need a lot of gas.
Well, I mean, where do you get gas when
Yep,
there's your prehistoric era?
I
Where
know.
you get that kind of stuff. But anyways,
Just
it's
have to
complicated.
run some sort of kind of a primitive generator.
Well, then how do you build a generator? Where do you get the tools, right? So
Well,
it's the
yeah.
basic thing. It's the basic thing about survival. And Tim Pool talked about this, like in that line. The idea is, what would you do, Stephen, in the like if the let's say like society collapsed tomorrow, and there's no more power, there's no more water, there's no more electricity, there's no more anything, right? No
Yep.
heating.
Mm-hmm.
How would you survive? What would be the first thing you do? Most people, the first thing you would do is you'd go to the store and you maybe loot if you're not able to purchase things because the survival mode kicks in. But after looting, after all the supplies are exhausted and everyone's already gotten them, what do you do? So it's an interesting question. Like,
I'd go to
how
the
do you
farm
build,
because we have a
right?
well.
Right? Like you'd have to find water. So water is important. Then how do you make food? And I legitimately don't know how I would do it. So something that I should probably look
Oh,
into. But
we'd have a lot of people secretly follow us to our farm, and we'd have a commune
you'd
with lots of
have
cows.
you'd have your own cult. You know, Stephen would be the almighty leader. It's like, yeah, Steve. Stephen the
Sorry, Matt
leader.
Walsh. I got the theocratic fascist first. I
Yeah, Stephen knows how to do it.
know.
All
All
right,
right.
man.
With that being
Speaking of
said, with the
speaking
looming
of
threat of my theocratic fascistic tyranny, let's move into the rant of the week.
oh, that's a good little segue.
I know.
Red alert.
Alrighty then. So, this week's rant of the week, starting off the stories with Alberta's new Premier, Danielle Smith. She said that unvaccinated people are the most discriminated against groups. The reactions to her comments are heated.
Yeah.
So, new Premier Danielle Smith has been officially sworn in, but comments made during her first news conference since becoming Premier have already got Albertans heated. After being sworn in as Premier on Tuesday, Smith told reporters that people who had chosen not to receive a COVID-19 vaccine were the most discriminated against group she had ever seen.
Yeah. So actually, if you click on
The video?
that YouTube link, yeah, right there, they have it already queued up. So here's what you said, and maybe full screen it.
Well, I guess the way I look at
It's
it is
unavailable.
that the community that faced the most restrictions on their freedoms in the last year were those who made a choice not to be vaccinated. I don't think I've ever experienced a situation in my lifetime where a person was fired from their job or not allowed to watch their kids play hockey or not allowed to go visit a loved one in long-term care or hospital, or not allowed to go get on a plane to either go across the country to see family or even travel across the border. So they have been the most discriminated against group that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. That's a pretty extreme level of discrimination that we have seen. I don't take away any of the discrimination that I've seen in those other groups that you mentioned, but this has been an extraordinary time in the last year in particular. And I want people to know that I find that unacceptable, that we are not going to create a segregated society.
Okay, so quick
Solid.
question for you, June. Good question.
Yep.
Okay, so obviously we like a comment. She's actually acknowledging the actual wrongs that have been done against the unvaccinated population. But here's the question: what was wrong with her comments? Like, just before you go into like the
Well,
whole
like
back.
I know that they're taking this because they're gonna say, oh well, other minorities have been mistreated in your lifetime, and she's like, but what she said was that they are the most discriminated against minorities that she has seen in her lifetime. She's not discounting the treatment of minorities that she hasn't seen. She's saying that what she's witnessed in her lifetime, the treatment of the unvaccinated, with the segregation of society and the withdrawal from society and the isolation from the general populace that was on the unvaccinated, was the worst that she's ever seen. Yeah. Now, of course, the attacks against her are completely unreasonable because they're twisting her words. I know what she said was not inappropriate in any way.
No, I would say like, no, this is what happens with, the lunatic left is they basically want to make equivalencies. It's like, well, what about the Black community? What about the Native community? What about, I don't know, like the LGBT community? Like, okay, you can make an argument that in terms of scale, this is far worse because, I mean, okay, you talk like about the gay community. What was the worst they got? They can't marry whoever they wanted. I'm like, oh no, the end of the world, right? But in terms of scale, that is nowhere near the scale of like millions and millions of people who were like literally lost their jobs and were not allowed to like even leave the country and all that kind of stuff. In terms of scales, like not even comparable. But even then, these are not meant to be like the discrimination of one person does not cancel out or or somehow diminish the discrimination of others. You can just say very clearly, all discrimination is wrong. We've just been like ignoring the discrimination against one entire group, which I think she's actually like acknowledging. And I think BC Premier John Horgan is basically like showing you how not to do this. Basically how he like the dismissal of the actual pain and suffering of the unvaccinated entirely. I don't know if you have that article there.
I'm trying to do some tagging, but I don't know Danielle Smith's Twitter. Whatever.
Twitter thing?
Yep.
So basically, like, there's been, whenever there's backlash, it's always on Twitter. It's always on, like the news will always say, like, oh my goodness, humongous controversy. The news is very good at creating false controversies. And this is like CBC article is a great example of that. So the article says BC Premier John Horgan calls Alberta Premier's comments on the unvaccinated laughable. Right. So this is how out of touch these people are and how much they literally hate. This is part of the reason why people in Alberta were so mad at Jason Kenney, because they basically completely dismissed and totally like badmouth anyone who disagreed with them. So according to this article, BC Premier John Horgan says it was laughable for the Alberta Premier to suggest that unvaccinated people are the most discriminated group in our lifetime. Horgan will step down as BC Premier later this year. He made the comments on CFAX Radio in Victoria. So what exactly does he say? Yeah, here later down he says Smith's comments are offensive because there was still forced sterilization and residential schools in her lifetime. Brad notes that. Oh, so this is Brad.
This is the political sciences in Mount Royal.
Yeah. This is another critic saying this. So Dwayne Bratt, the political scientist at Mount Royal University in Calgary, says that gay marriage wasn't legal across the country in 2005. Stephen, can you basically note or basically tell our watchers or viewers or listeners what is wrong with that logic?
What is wrong with the logic of that there was forced sterilization in residential schools in her lifetime?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she didn't witness them.
Okay.
So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can discover,
Mm-hmm.
but you're hearing about it after the fact.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, this is like a third party report. You're not reading about it as it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're looking at, of course, the stuff that's going on in Ukraine. We're looking at the stuff that's going on in Russia. And it's like, this is the closest we've been to nuclear war in our lifetime.
Yeah, since since the 60s.
Yeah, or in my parents' lifetime.
Yeah.
And of course, my parents were around the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, but they did not experience the trauma and the tension of the Cuban Missile Crisis because they were infants.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, this is the closest that I've experienced in my lifetime. Yes, because I didn't find out about it until it was way too late to feel the tension and feel the stress about it.
Yep.
And then this logic of, oh, gay marriage wasn't legal in the country until 2005. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think that gays should have the right to get married. I think they should have the right to civil unions set up by the government, but marriage is an institution that is primarily set up by the church and it's instituted by God, not the government.
Yeah, but even with that case, even with that case,
that's not discrimination.
No, but even if you look at that, like the scale of how many actual people does that affect? Yep. Very few. Mm-hmm. So scale wise, it's not even comparable because there's millions, 5-6 million people across Canada that couldn't leave the country, that lost their jobs, that were denied healthcare, were denied all sorts of things and all that, who were actually beat up and abused by police officers all over the country. Like the idea of the scale was completely different. Also, the level of discrimination, the scale, the actual how badly were they discriminated? The gay community was mostly underground, and their discrimination, discrimination, whatever you want to call it, was more hidden. It was not like in a physical, like you were thrown in jail for being gay in that era. Like it wasn't the thing. Not and so the idea that these comparisons are just not fair. But also that you can say, yes, you can agree, sure, discrimination against gay people, discrimination against blacks, discrimination against aboriginals, and discrimination against the unvaccinated are all wrong. Which is why we're like, yeah, all of these are fine. But here's the thing. The left, what they do is they find something that they can criticize their, the people that are in line, and they'll pounce on it. This is what they always do. Now, most of the time, whenever the left goes after somebody, he says oh, you're a horrible. This is all a tactic, but I will give all the props to Danielle Smith because her response was not the typical conservative response where normally conservatives will cave. Like they get criticized, they'll come up and be like, I'm so sorry, I take it all. I'm going to basically retract all of my statements and all that. But that was not what Danielle Smith did. Her statement was actually very telling. And if you can pull it up here, Stephen, you can actually go into her statement after the controversy, the artificial controversy came out.
I will read it out, hopefully without too much scratch in my voice. Yesterday, I made comments regarding the discrimination unvaccinated individuals have suffered over the past 2 years. My intention was to underline the mistreatment of individuals who chose not to be vaccinated and were punished by not being able to work, travel, or in some cases see loved ones. I wanted to be clear that I did not intend to trivialize in any way the discrimination faced by minority communities and other persecuted groups both in Canada and around the world to create any false equivalencies to the terrible historical discrimination and persecution suffered by so many minority groups over the last decade and centuries. We need to actively work together as Albertans and Canadians to end all discrimination against all minority communities. I am committed to listening, learning, and addressing the issues affecting minority communities. Over the next few days, my office will be reaching out to set up meetings with minority community stakeholders so I can better understand the different concerns of their individual communities.
Yeah. Joe, did she retract any of her statements?
Nope.
Nope, which is
Nope.
great. That's what you want to see. What was her response? She said, "Look, okay, I know there was a controversy. I want to make sure that people understand that I'm not trying to diminish or downplay the discrimination that other people have felt. I'm okay with that." She also said that she's happy to meet with and actually, listen to the minority communities that have grievances. I don't see any problem with that. A premier or a leader that is willing to sit down and listen to the people that have complaints is the kind of leader that you want. The problem with the Canadian government, both provincial and federal, in the last couple of years, is that they refuse to sit down with groups they don't like or the groups that they disagree with, and that is the problem. Trudeau famously refused to sit down and meet or even listen to any of the convoy, the trucker convoy leaders during that whole episode. He refused to talk to them. Created he actually only exacerbated the issue.
Yeah.
Daniel Smith is showing a different kind of leadership, which I will applaud, and I'm like, that's awesome. So now she addressed something which is obviously a big problem that has long been downplayed, dismissed. Like, speaking of downplaying and dismissing the suffering of a discriminated group, is the unvaccinated. Now, all this being said, the what Daniel Smith is doing is she is doing what Jason Kenney refused to do, which is she's actually addressing and bringing exposure to something that was wrong, which is that we basically mistreated an entire segment of our society and created a two-tier society for years because of a belief that these vaccines were a magic, potion that were going to solve all our problems and that they would somehow stop transmission in its tracks. But this becomes very interesting, the timing of this whole controversy, because of something that happened in the European Parliament. And this is something that was a big deal when it came up today. So, Stephen, can you bring up the story from news?
Didn't come up today, but it came up yesterday.
Okay, well, it came up recently, yeah.
Pfizer did not know whether COVID vaccines stopped transmission before rollout, executive admits. Pfizer executives made a frank admission during a parliamentary hearing, with one representative describing it as shocking, even criminal.
Right, so you can play the video here.
COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market. If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping humanisation before it entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market. And from that point of view, we had to do everything at risk.
No.
Wow. Booyah. So,
there is no speed of science. That doesn't exist. Like, Danny, how many steps does the scientific method have?
Like, officially? I think it's 7, isn't it?
The one that I was taught... Okay, the one that I was taught in school was 6.
Okay.
Let's look it up.
Well, while you're looking it up, I want to point out, so Jenny Small, the lady who was in that clip there, she's Pfizer's president of international developed markets, and this was actually a fairly serious, thing that she was actually before. So the member that asked that is the Dutch member of European Parliament, Rob Roos.
Yep.
Now, why is this important? Because this is the first major time that Pfizer publicly admitted that they had no data on the actual ability of this virus to stop transmission among people. And why is that important? Because we were told from the beginning that the vaccine would stop transmission, and that's how we're going to save grandma. That's how you're going to protect your elderly relatives. That's how you're going to protect everyone. And that was the foundation and the basis for all vaccine passports and all vaccine mandates. It's not, oh, you might get less sick. If that was the justification, you can justify any of these things. But they told us right out of the gates, immediately upon thrusting us into this, this entirely segregated, world that we had. They told us the vaccine stops transmission, and you know, and so the entire vaccine tyranny that we faced over the last 2 years was based on a lie. Now, Stephen, do you have the thing, or do we want to move on to the?
Yeah, I do.
Go for it.
So, in of course this scientific method, the picture: observation, research, hypothesis, test or experiment, analyze, and report conclusions.
Yeah.
So basically what they did was observation, small amount of research, hypothesis, and then conclusions. Or at least they experimented and then they reported conclusions before they really analyzed the data.
Well, I think, I will add something to that. I think what happened is that they tested exclusively to see if the vaccine would help prevent bad outcomes from COVID, so to speak. But the big lie that both Pfizer and the governments and everyone involved in the media, they all propagated this lie, is that if you get the vaccine, that you will not be able to pass it on to anybody anywhere. So here, show this video by
by Rob Bruce.
Rob Bruce, who actually responded to what he heard.
If you don't get vaccinated, you're antisocial. This is what the Dutch Prime Minister and Health Minister told us. You don't get vaccinated just for yourself, but also for others. You do it for all of society. That's what I said. Today, this turned out to be complete nonsense. In a COVID hearing in the European Parliament, one of the Pfizer directors just admitted to me, at the time of introduction, the vaccine had never been tested on stopping the transmission of the virus. This removes the entire legal basis for the COVID passport. The COVID passport that led to massive institutional discrimination as people lost access to essential parts of society. I find this to be shocking, even criminal.
Yeah. So if you actually the thing is, right from the get-go, all the major public officials, from Anthony Fauci to Joe Biden to the CDC director to everyone else, everyone that was pushing this vaccine, pushing this entire thing, they told us right from the get-go, this vaccine will stop transmission. If you get it, you're not going to transmit it to anybody else. And for proof of that, we have a video from the illustrious Dr. Anthony Fauci. Yeah. From Dr. Fauci.
Actually, my scratchy voice would be great for doing the Fauci voice.
Yeah, we actually would.
The Fauci.
The Fauci. Oh, I feel so bad.
So you get the vaccination. All right, let's go.
Here's Dr. Fauci on MSNBC, near the beginning, of the vaccine rollouts. I don't know the exact date. I was looking at it, couldn't really figure it out.
I hate how they don't list that anymore.
Of course. But but here's actually Dr. Fauci, basically telling the public, here's what you should know about the vaccine. So listen to what he says.
To be honest with you, Chris, I found out about it a couple of hours before it was announced. But the science behind it, I mean, obviously there's discussion and concern about the abruptness of the announcement and all that, but the science behind it, the fact that we know now that these vaccines are highly, highly effective, number one. Number two, they're really, really good against variants. I mean, the predominant variant in our country is the 117, the one that originated in the UK. It protects very well against that. And the other thing is that, and this relates to the New York Yankees situation, is that we're learning now with recent studies that even if you do get a breakthrough infection when you're vaccinated, the chances of your transmitting it to someone else is exceedingly low. So low likelihood of transmission, low likelihood of getting infected. When you do get infected, the chances are you're going to be without symptoms. And because of that, that was the accumulating scientific data that prompted the CDC to make that recommendation that when people are vaccinated, they can feel safe that they are not going to get infected, whether they're outdoors or indoors. That's
Shut him down, shut him off. He's annoying and he lies. But everything that he's saying about the shots, All of that was a complete fabrication. It was a lie pushed by Pfizer, pushed by fabricated studies. And we talked about this. We've talked about this many, many times. The establishment will publish these fake studies because they'll buy off the journals to push these fake studies, to push these fake reports that will advance their narrative so that it can be sold wholesale to the public, so that they can make money and gain prestige and power hand over fist, because so many people were just coddled like sheep.
And the problem is, like, that you would think that, okay, that they lied. Obviously, they didn't have the data, but they were telling everyone, if you get the vaccine, because remember, like, the whole premise was it wasn't enough to provide a vaccine. They have to find a way to coerce people to get it. So Stephen and I, we have covered over the last 2 years. We covered the Australian protest and the incredible things that they make COVID camps over there for people who did not get the vaccines. We covered things locally here in Canada. The entire premise of the trucker convoy is that without a vaccine, you're not allowed to travel. Even Canada, our own government, only dropped the travel restrictions literally a month, less than a month ago.
Yeah.
That's how long they were holding out. And we now know those travel restrictions were based on a lie. The idea that you could not pass it on to someone else. Justin Trudeau went on this tirade saying, if you don't want to get the vaccine, that's, you're free to do so, but don't think you can get on a plane or a train or all this other stuff.
He was saying, it'd be like, there will be consequences if you don't take it.
Yeah, you're not free from the consequences, what all these people said. So here's the important thing. Everyone from Jason Kenney to every premier across Canada, every health doctor from Dr. Bonnie Henry to Dina Hinshaw to all the other doctors across Canada, who all said the vaccine will stop transmission, they have all been proven wrong. Every single one of them should in a fair world should be stating a complete and total apology to the public. Whether or not they believe that they were following the science or not, they had it wrong. They got it wrong. They should apologize because they created an incredible amount of suffering to all people, and that they should be accountable for that.
Yes, they
now,
should.
The crazy thing about this is that you would think that this is all news and a surprise to everyone. That nobody knew this at the beginning. Nobody even imagined that the vaccine couldn't have stopped transmission, except in DH News. And this is the date was December 13, 2020, which is basically right before, because remember the vaccines were released
right before they started implementing them in the seniors.
Yeah, amazingly enough, this is what Dr. Tam said about the vaccine based on what she knew at the time.
Yeah, based on what she knew. Federal health officials have said that although COVID-19 vaccines protect against the virus, data does not exist on how well they prevent transmission. Theresa Tam, the public health officer for Canada, issued a statement on Sunday, this was of course back in 2020, to address increasing misinformation surrounding COVID-19. Following Health Canada's approval of the COVID-19 vaccine candidate, Tam urged Canadians to follow with public health measures in the coming months. While the vaccine offers protection against disease, data does not yet exist on prevention of transmission. Further reason to maintain our collective efforts.
She sounds like the witch from Snow White. It's like, come get your apple, theory. It's like,
Tam called the vaccine's authorization a historical step in moving forward through the pandemic, but cautioned the news does not change Canada's current situation. The country is still experiencing high COVID infection rates.
That was in December 2020.
Some people knew.
Yep.
But, and then of course, if this was actually, she's claiming this, and then of course everything that she did after that was entirely backtracking. Because it's yes, we should implement mandatory vaccines, but it's didn't you already say 6 months ago that this does not prevent transmission? There's no data to show that it prevents transmission. But we have to do it for the greater good of society.
The greater good.
The greater good.
The greater
It's
good.
wait, that doesn't make sense. Shut up. It's for the greater good.
Shut up, you bigot.
Exactly. Shut up, you spreader of misinformation. Let PayPal fine you $2,500.
pretty much actually. But that's the thing is we like altogether. Daniel Smith is right in saying that the unvaccinated were discriminated, and we were right, and a lot of people were right. And a lot of kudos should be said that the whole basis for the vaccine, tyranny, and crimes that were done on the human populace over the last 2 years was completely based on a lie. And by the way, I shared the article because this article, like that talked about the European Parliament, that was from blaze.com. That article was fact checked by Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what the fact checker said? Why that should be rated false, Stephen? Take a wild guess, because I mean it's always up in the air how their justification is. But I'm actually wondering if you might be able to guess correctly what their justification for why it's false.
Missing context.
Well, what context were they missing? Take a wild guess. You might be wrong, but you might be right too.
Take a wild guess that they're just like blatant lies.
Yeah.
They're probably saying the COVID-19 vaccines are safe, have been proven safe and effective.
Well, not far off. Okay, so what they said, and this is again lead stories, which is completely fraudulent. Fact checker, like they're garbage anyways. But what they said, the rationale that they said for why that story is false is because that's not how vaccine trials work. They don't test for transmission. That was their thing. I think it was PolitiFact too.
Well, PolitiFact, the Google page says alleged revelation about Pfizer vaccine trial is nothing new, and then when you click on it, it says that it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, did they delete it?
They must have.
Oh, I guess so. Let me take a look, because I posted that article on our group and immediately got flagged for misinformation.
Yeah.
Maybe they changed it. Yeah. Oh, they did. That thing isn't there anymore. Whoa, they changed that quick. Wow, that's. But yeah, all you need to know.
We go hiding.
if Facebook ever fact checks something that you post, it's almost guaranteed that it's true. It is true. That is pretty much the stamp of approval for how you know something is true if it's fact checked. So yeah, so that's the rant of the week. We basically just covered the idea that vaccine passports were a joke. Thankfully, there's one leader in Canada that's at least showing promise that is actually acknowledging the crime that was committed against their own people. All praise.
Praise be to Danielle
Smith. Yeah, so far she's doing great. So
all hail Danielle.
All hail Danielle. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I know. She's the new all hail Elon.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
All right, buddies. Let's jump into the
news you may have missed.
Let's just hop through these things, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go through the news you may have missed. So, despite the fact that Pfizer and all these institutions will not be forced to pay a dime for all the damages that they've caused, for all the harm that they've caused, and for all the lies that they have perpetuated, Alex Jones told to pay $965 million damages to Sandy Hook victims' families. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones has been ordered to pay $965 million in damages after falsely claiming that the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting was a hoax, which he then retracted many times. The families of 8 victims and an FBI agent who responded to the attack had sought at least $550 million in the defamation trial. They alleged the right-wing radio host misinformation led to a decade of harassment and death threats, which he did not tell people to do.
Not his fault.
And of course, 20 children and 6 adults were killed in that elementary school massacre. Jones, who founded InfoWars, I'm not going to say it's conspiracy-laden because there are a lot of things which have been proven true, argued for years and then argued against it for years that the massacre was a staged government plot to take guns from Americans and that no one died. He called the parents of the victims crisis actors and argued that some of them never actually existed.
Based on reports he was given.
Yeah, reports and by individuals and by professors and a whole bunch of other individuals which he talked to.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course, the verdict was read on Wednesday, some 20 miles from the site of the shooting. And when you, I watched the video of Alex Jones with Steven Crowder today. If everything that he's saying when he was talking to Steven Crowder is true, then that trial was just a sham.
Oh, it's a clear, by the way, there's the truth, and then there's the truth. It's like from Family Guy, like the two guys. So the truth, like the truth that they want to tell you is that this is about getting justice for the victims of Sandy Hook. But then there's the truth, which is that this is basically nothing more than like all the institutions that have lots of power going after Alex Jones, trying to silence a very prominent and very influential voice on the right.
Yeah.
This is what this is. This is basically a kangaroo court trying to like sham accusation that's completely and totally made up. So I don't believe a word of it. I definitely encourage you to look at the facts, because they're going to tell you every line in the book.
Yeah.
Because none of the people there are honest. Okay. Now let's move on to the next.
I'm Alex Jones.
Yeah, but you gotta turn the front's gay. It's terrible.
Now we're going to talk about the New York Post.
New York Post. They're awesome, like publication. All right, so New York Post. AOC heckled at town hall for Ukraine support. You're voting to start a nuclear war, is what she's basically told. So, do you want to play the video?
Sure, let's do it.
To start this war in Ukraine, you're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens? You're playing with our lives. There will be no neighbors if there's a nuclear bomb. You voted to mobilize and send money to Ukrainian Nazis. You're a coward.
Wow,
Darn.
calling her out. I will say
that was better than the last time she was heckled. Big booty Latina.
Yeah, my favorite big booty Latina. Come over here, girl. Anyway, so the thing with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is that not just her, but every person in Congress, we have seen evidence over the last couple of weeks of people and members of Congress, both Republican and Democrat, all talking and saying things that pretty much demonstrate that they're not trying to de-escalate, but they're only escalating the situation. They continue to send money. They just approved another major package of money towards Ukraine, and it seems like all of the actions that have been coming out recently, from the bombing of Nord Stream, which was a big deal, to the revelations that there was a massive that the attack on the prominent man's daughter in Ukraine was actually committed by the Ukrainians, to the bridge attack that seems to be done by Ukrainians. All of this seems to all point to the idea that everyone is being super reckless. So good for people standing up to their members of Congress, because they are being really irresponsible.
Well, the line that we didn't see, but Tulsi Gabbard left the Democratic Party because they're a bunch of war hawks. The heckler continued. You ran as an outsider, yet you've been voting to start this war with Ukraine. You're voting to start a third nuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens?
Yep.
So, Ocasio-Cortez, you are a fool.
You are dumb. You dumb girl.
Alrighty.
All right. Take it out to Fox News.
Saudis say Biden admin requested oil production cut to come after midterms. The Biden administration has threatened Saudi Arabia with consequences for moving forward with the cut. So President Biden's administration urged Saudi Arabia to delay cutting oil production by 1 month, putting it behind the midterm elections, the country said Thursday. The Saudi government, which leads the OPEC oil conglomerate, rejected appeals from the U.S. last week and moved forward with cutting oil production, potentially causing gas prices to spike in the United States before Election Day. The government of the kingdom clarified through its continuous consultation with the United States administration that all economic analysis indicates the postponing the OPEC Plus decision by a month. OPEC Plus? You're not Disney. You're a massive oil conglomerate. Why are you OPEC Plus?
OPEC Plus,
Yeah, it's like an extra subscription service so I can get cheaper gasoline. Sign me up.
No, you get the special gas.
You get the special gas. You get the special gas only if you don't let your sisters or wives or mothers drive.
Very important.
Very important. Yep.
Yeah.
So, according to what was suggested, it would have been negative economic consequences, read a Thursday statement from the Saudis, according to The Guardian. What Biden is trying to propose to the Saudis is trying to say, you can have a cut to production, and that will, of course, raise gas prices, but do it after the election, because that'll raise the chance of the Democrats getting elected, because people won't see the turmoil and the devastation that my government and the Democrats in in Congress and the Senate have made and caused, and so that they'll elect the Democrats and that I won't get impeached.
Yep. Yeah.
You know what that's called? Quid pro quo. Impeach that bastard.
Isn't that what the
Yep, but for
Hannibal
far
Lecter?
less.
You know what Hannibal Lecter did with Clarice? You know, quid pro quo, Clarice. That's pretty much what's going on right here. Except there's no people eating. But anyways, the big thing I want to point out here, something big picture, like let's say the big picture, let's back up the big picture, is that the OPEC is actually, like, we think like Americans are like the biggest in OPEC. Well, like OPEC is kind of siding with Russia and with China right now. And let's face it, let's just like say hypothetically, let's say the Russians are fully aware that they did not, like, let's say hypothetically, if the Russians did not bomb Nord Stream 1 and 2, then they would know, okay, the most likely person is America. So how do you get back at America and the American president for what they're pushing with the Ukrainian war? Maybe use some of your influence on OPEC and get OPEC to cut gas so that you raise prices, so that not only America but also Europe is hit harder by the gas prices.
Yep.
I mean, that would not be like too far off. So keep that in mind when you think about this. That there's a lot of global politics, and a lot of them are basic. Like Russia's not helpless when it comes to global politics. I'm thinking. I'm actually just thinking there's just another thing that's going to, kick Biden in the butt, because that man is a liar.
Yep.
Like he keeps saying that, inflation doesn't exist. Anyways, let's go on to the Calgary Herald story. So Calgary Herald, banking breakup between Kanye West, JP Morgan planned for weeks. Oh, that's interesting. From the Associated Press. Kanye West. So this New York, JP Morgan Chase and the rapper formerly known as Kanye West are ending their business relationship, but the breakup is not a result of the controversy over the hip-hop star's recent anti-Semitic comments. The letter ending West's relationship with JP Morgan was tweeted Wednesday by conservative activist Candace Owens, who has been seen publicly at events with the rapper, who is now legally known as Ye. Earlier today, I learned that Kanye West was officially kicked out of JP Morgan Chase Bank. I was told there was no official reason given, but they sent this letter as well to confirm that he has until late November to find another place for the Yeezy empire to bank. While Owens claimed that JP Morgan did not disclose the reason for severing ties, the letter was sent to West on September 20th, according to a person familiar with the matter, who was not authorized to speak about it publicly. The decision was made after Ye publicly said he was going to cut off ties with the bank. JP Morgan is giving West 60 days from the date of the letter to find a new banking relationship. And it goes on from there. So basically, what we know is that JP Morgan basically, said, we're canceling all of Kanye West banking with us. And a lot of the speculation going around is that, are they doing it because of the, the social credit, way that PayPal went? PayPal basically decided, we're going to social credit you. You say things that we don't like, there's going to be consequences. A lot of people are wondering, is JP Morgan following the same route that PayPal and even the Chinese communist regime are basically following, which is, you do something that goes against the regime, then we're going to punish you using our influence over corporate powers. Stay tuned. We're not really sure what the rationale is, but it sounds like JP Morgan Chase is following through on these, woke, basically, approaches to punishments. Take it away, Stephen.
Yep. All right. Next story. Axe-wielding lunatic. I was hoping to get this story. Who was released without bail after smashing a McDonald's and attacking customers last month is busted again for stealing a $3,500 bike and spraying graffiti. Michael Palacios was arrested after spray painting graffiti and stealing a bike just a month after his axe-wielding rampage in McDonald's. He made headlines in September when he was filmed swinging his axe and tearing up furniture during a fight with customers. Despite his repeat offenses, he was released yet again without bail. It comes as violent crime in NYC is up 33% from last year. Maybe the people running NYC should do something to stop it. Like
No, no, no.
maybe keeping these degenerate scum in prison
Stephen,
because this guy is a threat to society.
Stephen,
Yes.
you're missing one important point.
That New Yorkers have no sense.
Yeah, it leftist
Oh,
politics.
I got too ranty
You
for
do
news
the
you may have
opposite.
missed.
You do the complete opposite of what is logical. That's basically leftist politics. It's like, it makes sense that if a violent criminal commits a crime, we should probably lock him up. Let's do the opposite. Let him loose into society so he'll just go out and do it again. That's how it works, Stephen. That's the official rule. I know.
The burden
so
of being more intelligent than other people.
Yeah, that's right.
I learn
for
that all
anybody
the
who actually-
time during work. I'm just like, this is a dumb idea.
Yeah,
I guess I'll just
Anyways.
have to live with it.
we're just gonna go along with it.
Just
Fine.
go along to get along because I'm
People are
just a
dumb.
laborer
People
and
down.
my life is meaningless.
Anyway, so Steven's spiraling. You know, pull up, Steven. You're spiraling.
There
That's
is
fine.
no pulling.
I'm
There is
going to go
only
on to the
doom.
Daily Caller story while Steven's contemplating his existence in life. So this is from the Daily Caller. So Montgomery County schools saw 582% increase in reported gender non-conforming students over 2 years. The data shows. By the way, this is a great way of demonstrating how effective indoctrination can be and how effective grooming can be in these schools. So Maryland's largest public school district saw a 582% increase in the number of students identifying as gender nonconforming in just 2 years, according to internal data posted on an educator's Twitter page. Montgomery schools gathered this data from forms school counselors fill out when their students approach them to talk about gender identity. Because the numbers rely on self-reporting, the near seven-fold increase from 2019 to 2022 could indicate a massive increase in the number of gender-diverse students and environment that encourages those students to be open with counselors or both. Actually, I will throw another possibility at these people. The other possibility is rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is caused by social contagion and people that are trying to get easily fooled and easily manipulated children to believe something that is complete nonsense. Let's just add that to the mix. Okay, the data, which is not publicly available to parents or taxpayers, was posted on Twitter on October 6th when educator Alicia Eberhardt Bliss shared an image of a slideshow presented at a meeting with the district's Pride Alliance. During this school year, a total of 35 students reported gender nonconformity to a counselor, including 4 elementary students, 19 middle school students, 12 high schoolers. During the most current school year, the total number of students spiked to 239 from 35, including 18 elementary students, 129 middle schoolers, and 92 high schoolers. By the way, this is endemic across Canada and the U.S. This is happening everywhere. So the important thing that you need to remember, the story goes on, I encourage you to read it, but the important thing to remember is that they have a plan. And when I say they, I mean the leftist lunatics that have taken over school districts all across Canada and all across the States and all across the world. They are succeeding in indoctrinating children in the dark, in the secret, into believing that they are magically, just by believing that they are something new, that they are magically that, and then they are using secrecy to basically put them on the path to their own self-destruction. So this is just another bit of evidence that this is a dangerous trend that if it's not stopped, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of children will have lifelong devastating consequences, and it's going to be a horrible, horrible outcome. So that is the news you may have missed.
Yeah, when you were talking there, I was just reminded of a song they used to play at Center Street.
Oh, okay.
In the secret, in the quiet place. It's like,
That's a very poor, use of,
I know. This is like,
it's kind of like something they shared with me. Toronto, somebody from Toronto shared a picture of a rainbow next to the CN Tower and said, "Hey, God is saying Happy Pride Month. I'm like, no, that is the opposite of what that means.
Stoning!
Yeah. God is like, hey, I destroyed you once.
I can do it again.
I can do it again. You better shape up, son.
Yep.
Last news you may miss. Hey, by the way, it's awesome. Shelly's actually on Twitch. This is awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, Shelly. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't follow
Come
Twitch that
on.
often. I
The
always
fire
watch
and
on,
judgment is coming. Indeed it is, Wormy. Indeed it is.
Yes, right.
Shelly gives the little woo.
Hey, Shelly. You're the best, girl. You're the best.
Yep.
All right, buddy. Let's bring it on to the next segment, which is the news you may have missed. Oh, sorry,
Oh,
not
it's
the
the
news you may have missed.
nothing to
Thank you.
see here.
Nothing to see here. Take it away, Steven.
Admonish Danny.
Admonish.
Woo.
Bless you.
I was like, and I'm gonna wait so that I don't have this go off in the middle of the video because it'll be like explosions and then my sneeze.
Explosive sneeze. Very
Yeah,
good.
explosive sneezes.
Okay.
But this is the nothing to see here.
All right, move on. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
Alrighty. So,
Such a scene.
Danny,
All right.
go for
I
it.
will take it away. All right. So, what we're going to talk about today in the Nothing to See Here segment, we're going to talk about the topic of the death of the Hippocratic Oath. Now, if you know anything about the Hippocratic Oath, it was based on a Greek physician called Hippocrates, okay, or Hippocrates.
There you
And the
go.
whole-
I was like,
I was going to say not Hippocrates, Hippocrates. I just looked at it today. So Hippocrates was credited for starting the whole idea that doctors should do no harm. Okay. Now, one of the professions that was consistently seen as the most trusted profession in North American history and life is doctors. Okay, lawyers were always consistently very low, as well as many other people. Doctors are seen. We give them our trust because we trust that they will take care of us and they will take care of our needs, and that their ultimate goal is to help us to get through whatever illness or thing that we go through. When you go into a doctor's office, they take your blood pressure, they do all sorts of tests, and you just trust. You have an inherent trust that they are going to do what is in your best interests. Okay? Now, the problem is, in the last couple of years, that entire veil has been falling off. The entire, idea that these doctors are doing things for your best interests has completely and totally caved. It's similar to what happened in schools, because what happened was schools were shut down. All the kids had to be had to be on. Parents suddenly realized with horror what was being taught to them, what was being taught to their kids in these schools. In a similar way, people suddenly realized that the very physicians that they believe that they could trust with complete confidence are not at all doing things for their best interests. Now, we're going to start with a very quick story. We're going to go through a couple of stories. So here's the story from City News in Toronto. Doctors urged to be selective about issuing medical exemptions for COVID vax. Now, we're not going to read through the story, but what I'm pointing out is that all throughout the pandemic, doctors were not giving people legitimate exemptions. If me and Stephen and many other people who are on the freedom side, we all understood. We heard horrifying stories of people with very legitimate medical reasons for why they could not get the vaccine. We're being told no. We're being told, nope, you can't get an exception for that. With masks, the same thing. Nope, you can't get an exception for the vaccine. Doctors were basically caving and were not taking care of their patients' well-being. Also, doctors were being told that you must recommend the vaccine to everyone that comes to your doors. Doesn't matter how many dangers there exists. What do you call it? informed consent was a principle that was completely abandoned by medical professionals, and all of our major doctors, from Dina Hinshaw, Dr. Tam, to Anthony Fauci, all of them completely abdicated their responsibility and told people lies. That is one example that was the biggest, most egregious one, but it's far from the only one. In our next story here, go on to the next story here, Stephen. So this is from Fox News. And it says journalist says doctors are afraid of losing license, being sued if they don't affirm patient self-diagnosis on gender. Again, more stories that basically show, in terms of transgenderism, we've discovered in the last couple of years that doctors are nearly just giving a rubber stamp. Self-diagnosis is the rule. Anybody who's followed these stories about the whole transgender craze that's going on, that's sweeping the nation, we know that if you're a doctor and you have a transgender patient that comes to you, you will basically give them whatever they ask for, and they will never be rejected, because doctors are scared. They're just giving their patients whatever they want. In other words, doctors are telling children who are too young to consent, and in complete and total absence of their parents in many cases, they're giving them testosterone without actually doing a diagnosis. They're giving them doctor's notes to get operations and all these things. Doctors have been failing children, families, and the transgender community by ignoring the legitimate science and the harms and foul that could come from transgenderism. So that's another example of doctors failing us.
Yep.
Stephen, can you go to the next story? Now, let's skip over to abortion. In abortion, in Canada in particular, because in the States they have abortion doctors that all they do is do abortions in these clinics. In Canada, abortions are done both by private and public clinics. In hospitals across Canada, doctors are being expected to not only to allow abortions, but to perform abortions. And if you're a doctor in Canada, you're not allowed to you're basically not allowed to say I can't give a referral to a doctor who will recommend and who will actually give you an abortion. So in Canada, doctors are completely ignoring the Hippocratic oath, the do no harm, because they're not only are they allowing, but they're actually actively promoting and pushing women to kill children. They're breaking the Hippocratic oath. They're causing harm to unborn children. In transgenderism, they're allowing and promoting harm to children who are too young to know better. And like we said in the original, when it comes to COVID, with the vaccines, with masks, they were allowing people to be harmed, and they never took any ownership over that. Now that takes us to the final example I want to put up, which is from Natural Blaze. Now, this is just the story, but basically the idea here is that doctors were warned that they could lose their license for contradicting CDC info on COVID treatments and vaccines. So, your doctor, if you went to see them, they were told, you're not allowed to give someone ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or any other treatment. Even you're not even allowed to recommend vitamin D. They were told you cannot give people possibly effective and definitely safe treatments. So your doctor actively refused to give you safe and effective treatments, whether or not they were super effective or not. We are safe, and they just refused. So all through the pandemic, and all through abortion, and all through the masks and the vaccines, and all the way through, your doctor has been breaking and violating the Hippocratic Oath for over a couple of years, and this is a trend that is completely and totally brought about a complete destruction of the trust that we once had in doctors, to the point where people are now scared to see doctors. And that leads us to the story, that the current story of what's happening right now with doctors in Canada who are leading the way in one of the most horrible experiments foisted upon human beings, the justification and the promotion of murder and eugenics across Canada. So that's where we're going to end up today. But the goal here is to demonstrate there's a reason why people don't trust doctors anymore, because doctors for the last several years have completely and totally thrown the Hippocratic Oath in the garbage. Stephen, can you take us through the story?
Yeah, I can read through it. Euthanasia is now a leading cause of death in Canada, and ethicists are freaking out. Euthanasia is now a leading cause of death in Canada only after a few years of being legalized. It became a legal option in Canada, 18 years and older, in 2016, who had to prove suffering from severe pain and have a reasonably foreseeable death, as well as 2 doctors signing off on the decision. The practice is only illegal in 7 countries, as well as in some parts of Australia, according to the Associated Press. Canada's particular law is more expensive than most, but it is set to be even more broad next year. Canada's institutions seem to be using euthanasia legalization to avoid the expense of caring for the disabled. Extremely disturbing. Now, any adult with a serious disease or mental health reason can seek euthanasia, according to the Associated Press. The policy is also creeping forward to encompass the mentally ill, poor, and soon children, with some experts saying the law is going too far. Some. It should be everybody if it's soon being accessible by children.
Yeah.
This law is probably the biggest existential threat to disabled people since the Nazis' program in the 30s. Tim Stainton, director of the Canadian Institute for Inclusion and Citizenship at the University of British Columbia, told the Associated Press.
Yeah. So basically, Canada is now engaging in one of the most progressive and aggressive euthanasia programs in human history. All the way, and a lot of people, like we said, are pointing to what happened in Nazi Germany. Now, Stephen, do you remember what happened in Nazi Germany? What were they doing to disabled people?
What would they be doing to disabled people?
Yes.
Well, they would force sterilize them.
Yep.
And then some of them they would just outright kill, and some of them they would put into labor camps. Because they were part of the groups of... Do you know the word for what they called the Jews and the disabled and the gypsies?
Rats?
No, what the word in German is.
Oh, the undesirables? I forgot the German.
Untermensch.
Untermensch. That's
Subhuman.
Right, I remember hearing that. Yeah, subhumans. So I remember hearing stories, like actual, testimonies from people who survived, like the rise of the Nazis. There's a woman who said that, she lived in a small village or small town in Austria, and then suddenly people from the government came, and they basically rounded up all the disabled people, illness, people, different things, and they basically rounded them up, took them to some kind of healthcare center, like they said, to get some kind of healthcare. So they would all get on these vans and buses, whatever. They go off to this center, and then they would just never come back. And they were told oh yeah, it was unfortunate, yeah, they died of an unnatural causes or something else. But really, what was happening is they were basically being killed against their will, obviously. But the reason is because they saw them as a burden to the society. Germans wanted eugenics. They wanted to get rid of the weak, and so that only the strong survive, as the Spartans did. If you ever watched 300, they basically distorted or less than perfect child were just discarded and left to exposure and infanticide. Now, something I really want to point out. This is something that I remember. I Stephen. Do you remember watching movies like Braveheart or any movies where a public execution happened? Do you remember those scenes where the public execution happened?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah. Okay. So do you remember the executioners? What is one feature that executioners always, whenever they were carrying out their executions?
They had a hood.
They had a hood. Do you know why?
So they wouldn't be identified?
Yeah. Why would they not want to be identified?
Because the family and the close relations and associates of the victims would seek to take retribution.
Right. Even though they're carrying out the law
and justice.
Then justice.
They are the blade of the government, and so they will be the target of the populace because they can't target the crown because the crown is too well protected.
Right. And so back then it was shameful. It was considered shameful to be the person that actually carries out justice for the government. Now, obviously, we have a lot of cases of people being unjustly, killed, but for the most part, the idea was that the executioner was the person that would actually carry out the execution, and they would have to be hidden because it's a shameful thing. However, nowadays we have those were not physicians or doctors; they were just regular people.
They were regular strong folk.
Yeah. Now we have the very same people who were tasked, who we entrust to care for us when we're sick and when we might not, when we're most vulnerable. And now we have doctors going in and killing people. Like let's not mince words. When a doctor goes into your room and they're going to provide the euphemism, which they always use, of NAID, was compassion and dying, which is just a fancy word for they're coming in to kill you. And they're not wearing a hood. They're wearing a symbol of the trust that we've always thought. This white coat that they're an expert in health and they're coming in to kill you.
Yeah.
That is how far the medical profession has fallen. That the very people whose job it is to save you, to keep you alive, and to keep you healthy are the very people
who
the
are coming to
government
kill
is
you.
sending to kill you. That should be chilling.
Yeah.
If not outright, horror.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is now. There's a write-up from Human Life International.
We can put in the source for that article.
Sure.
And then people can read it because it just details what the kind of minutia of the euthanasia law. Kind of general gist is that it makes it more broad and it's easier to apply for. There is also, which I'll link. Danny, you can send me that article from that one author.
Yeah.
It goes into this long story of this one individual who discovered that her son was going to go through medical assistance in dying or euthanasia. And she discovered how easy it was to get authorization for this. There was barely any inconveniences in getting the authorization or going through the process.
Yeah.
And so it's heartbreaking. But that's the treatments and that's the options that our doctors and that our physicians and that our healthcare providers are offering to these individuals that are struggling and that are looking for a way out and trying to kind of reaching out their hand to anyone who will be there. And these people are taking their hands and then offering them the gun.
Yeah. Now you have to remember too, one big connecting factor in all these things, in all these applications, duty to protect and to do no harm, is money.
Yep.
Because you have to remember, in the transgender game, there's an awful lot of money in these surgeries, and a lot of doctors are selling their soul because of the incredible amount of money they make from it. In abortion, it's money. They're getting a lot of money from letting people die, or basically going in and killing a child, and they're getting a lot of money for that. In euthanasia, this is also the incentive, because not only are these euthanasia doctors getting a ton of money to perform these procedures, which is basically death, but they're also the government is getting an incentive because it is much cheaper to kill someone than to spend all the money that normally requires to be able to help them. And so as a result, a lot of people are being denied even access to the very thing that they need, which is care, which is all sorts of funding so that they can live in some kind of dignity. The government is now withdrawing these so that they have only one option. And we have seen this happening where people could have done just fine if the government actually provided them with some sort of financial medical support or some kind of thing that's doable. But instead the government's saying you know what, we're gonna take away any possibility so that you will choose to die. Why? Because it's cheaper. And that is not compassion, that is cruelty. And that is what the medical profession in our country has become. This is why this is something that they don't want you to see. And that's why this segment is the death of the Hippocratic Oath.
Yep,
Nothing to see here, Stephen.
indeed.
Mhm.
Don't look at the Hippocratic Oath, especially the original, which literally states, "You shall not give a pessary to provide a woman with an abortion."
Really? The original one?
That was literally in your link. Here, I'll show you.
Hmm?
Now I got to change things because I had already set it up for Douche of the Week.
I'm sorry.
But
I'm
here,
actually
I will
confused
show
about
it for everybody.
that. Okay.
Okay. So Hippocratic Oath changed to allow abortion. This was the original.
Mhm.
All the gods, blah, 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 to consider dear to me as my parents, him who taught me this art, to live in common with him, and necessary to share my goods with him, to look upon his children as my own brothers, to teach him this art. I will prescribe regimens for the good of my patients according to my ability and my judgment, and never do harm to anyone. I will not give a lethal drug to anyone if I am asked. Euthanasia. Nor will I advise such a plan, and similarly, I will not give a woman a pessary to cause an abortion. But I will preserve the purity of my life and my arts.
In other words, do no harm. Guess what? Guess what abortion does? Does harm. Transgenderism does harm.
Euthanasia does
Definitely
harm.
does harm. Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
That's definitely
Yep.
definitely a harmful activity.
All right. Well, I'm gonna turn on the Douche of the Week, and then by then
Do it.
I will have already switched over.
Keep it up.
All right. So, Douche of the Week this week: classless activist destroys flower memorial to Ashley Babbitt. Capitol Police do nothing. So, of course, you'd think with all the practice and actual events far-left activists have taken part in over the past few years, they'd get better and more effective at just destroying the property of others, lighting cities on fire, and then playing the victims. But far-left activists are stupid. So, here's another example of a mentally defective activist trying to win points amongst their equally ill-informed comrades. Some woman who goes by the handle Anarchy Princess, ooh, she's such a rebel, decided to live stream herself destroying a supposed birthday memorial in which people left flowers by the guardrail of the Capitol building steps in honor of the late murdered Ashley Babbitt.
Sure.
I'm not going to show you this video because that one's exceptionally profane.
Oh no, that was so exciting.
But this is the censored version, and I will full screen it.
I guess nobody wants it here, right? Nobody wants this shit.
Wow.
Ashley Babbitt. Ashley Babbitt.
Wow.
That's what you get. Nobody wants your birthday celebrated on the Capitol, you dumb bitch. You think these cops want to celebrate your honor? You tried to kill them, you you, Mickey.
Yep, just super,
Wow.
super nice there.
Unbelievable. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Steven, maybe you can just in case anybody's
Well,
Where?
here, I'll go back to the previous story and read some more about this individual. She seems like a wonderful person with absolutely no daddy issues at all. She's
Not at
so
all.
classy, she even published a brief conversation with Taylor Hanson, the independent journalist who clipped the video, put it on Twitter. He was one of the journalists who witnessed Babbitt being shot and killed by a Capitol Police officer during the events of January 6th. And of course, the response was F. Ashley Babbitt. The woman who supposedly goes by Brianne Marie Chapman wrote, replying to a request for comments. Chapman's name came up when Hanson noted she allegedly had her children taken away from her due to her not being a suitable parent. It's worth noting that Brianne Chapman allegedly had her children taken away. I can never imagine why that would have happened. Any comment? Full name. And then, of course, this is her being arrested.
Lovely. What a lovely lady.
Yep. So
Boy.
that, yeah, looking at what she's doing,
Mhm.
like, we all know what happened on January 6th was not an insurrection. It wasn't the end of the world. It was, I like the words that Tim Pool's used. A bunch of MAGA memas most of which were invited in.
Yeah, they
Like
were.
the ones that, broke their way in should be charged with destruction of property. Most were invited in. Most just were ushered in because the doors were already open. They committed no crime.
Yep.
Like, yes, Ashley Babbitt went through a window which she should not have.
But there's things that merit the death penalty.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm
There's things
never
that do
saying
not.
that she deserved to die for that. Like,
She did
nobody
not.
behind that window, she did not present any threat to them.
Not at all.
She basically stuck her head through, and then they shot her right through the neck.
If there was ever a case, remember how Black Lives Matter is notorious for distorting the facts and trying to claim police brutality when no police brutality was actually proven. Now this is a perfect case of the complete opposite, where police brutality was obvious and the officer got off scot-free.
Well, and they didn't,
powerful
they
friends.
fought so hard to try and hide this officer's name, to try and cover up what he did. They tried to paint Ashley Babbitt as this horrible terrorist who was going to kill people. Like, and these Antifa leftist, completely nonsensical, ignorant people believe this nonsense. And of course, this person is saying that, oh, Ashley Babbitt tried to kill Capitol Hill police officers. No,
Nope,
she
not
didn't.
true. Liar.
The worst act she committed was trespassing. And so, yes, it is totally merited to have a memorial for someone shot unjustly.
That's right.
Whether you disagree with their politics or not.
Yep.
Like, George Floyd was shot. Or no, he wasn't shot. George Floyd died because of a fentanyl overdose.
Yeah. It's very complicated what all happened.
Very complicated.
Okay, let me put it this way. And in a normal interaction with police, if no fentanyl was involved, if no craziness was involved, that maneuver that cop used on George Floyd, a guy of his size, would not have killed. If you give 10 guys of his body build and his size, you put all 10 of them in that position without any drugs involved, without any crazy drug over thing, none of them will die.
Yeah. Now, to have a memorial for George Floyd dying due to a drug overdose. It's like, yes, it was sad that he died. He was in the process of doing something that was wrong.
Yep.
But that does not mean we should not say that his death was a tragedy. All deaths, or most deaths, are tragedies. Some people, due to their actions prior, do deserve to have their lives taken.
Yep.
But we don't celebrate those deaths. We don't say that these were good things to happen. And we certainly would not desecrate the memorial of someone who died in these kind of circumstances.
Oh yeah.
I would of course argue against kind of the sainthood that some of these BLM martyrs have been given. Like, I think back to that mural on the brick wall of George Floyd face the divine smite of God.
Face my wrath.
Face my wrath. Whack, 2d8 radiant damage.
One shot. It was quite the story, actually. The fact that lightning
I was like,
only affected the mural and nothing
only
else.
affected the mural, and on a sunny day with barely a cloud in the sky.
Lightning literally came out of nowhere.
I love how that was the effort. Like, I was watching that with Tim Pool, and he's just like,
dang.
He's like,
he was.
I don't have any other instance in my life that could be classified as an act of God, but this is it. And then it was right on that same day when that woman was just like, she was mocking God, and then immediately she collapses.
Yeah.
It was like,
It was a little coincidental.
A little coincidental, and it's like, yep.
Too much on the nose.
Little on the nose, but you always have a sense of humor.
Let's put it this way. There are things that you just do not do.
Oh, yeah.
For example, You could have an arch nemesis, somebody who made your life a living hell, maybe a parent that was horrible to you. It is still something you don't do is you don't go to their funeral and literally dance on, literally like destroy all the flowers and
essentially
things
dancing on their grave.
They're dancing and destroying their grave because you have a beef with them.
Yep.
That does not make you a good person. That does not make you like, I'm right. And that proves that you are a horrible person.
Yep.
Like all the belief that this woman had that she's in the right and that she's the morally superior person was completely destroyed by doing this act.
Yeah.
She can complain all she wants and say like, yeah, she doesn't deserve it. I'm mad about this, but the fact that she actually went ahead and spit on other people who basically, care about the death of this person shows that this woman is morally bankrupt, and her actions don't speak against that. They only
serve to heighten our hypotheses using the scientific method, unlike Pfizer.
Unlike Pfizer.
Yeah.
So like the thing is, actually, there are so many lies surrounding January 6th. You know what actually should be the insurrection that everyone should always have on their lips, Stephen? May 29th.
May 29th, yeah.
May 29th. Because when
where they tried to burn down the White House.
And they actually stormed, fenced
They
off
got
areas.
pretty close.
They got pretty close. They
forced Trump into a bunker.
They forced Trump into a bunker.
And they burned down a church.
There was legitimate danger of serious, consequences. That was far closer to an actual insurrection than anything that happened on January 6th.
Yeah.
So May 29th, baby. That's the true insurrection.
Yep. Soon as we get those midterms, it's like, where's my May 29th insurrection investigation?
That's right. That's what I would be down for that. That would be
who are we investigating?
May 29th, May 29th, May 29th, May 29th, May 29th, just like nonstop.
Yeah, May 29th. And then, of course, who are we investigating? We're investigating Sean King. We're investigating people like... who's that crazy...
Who's the Attorney General? The
Letitia James?
Merrick Garland.
Well, yeah, and then I think Letitia James is the Attorney General of New York.
Yeah, we got an
I believe.
Too. Yep.
There's a lot of people that need to be investigated.
Including the freaking FBI.
Yep. That was actually a story we missed this week about the FBI. There was a whistleblower who basically said that the FBI tried to pay this this informant to dig up stuff on Trump.
Basically, during the election, before I think before Trump even got elected, they basically wanted that informant to find proof that the P-tape, the whole P-tape thing, was legitimate, and they offered him $1 million. Why? Because they were trying to interfere with the election by trying to dig up dirt on Trump, hoping that would derail his chances of winning. That is called political interference, and the FBI had the freaking nerve to suggest that we can't do the Biden thing because that would be political interference. Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
you're already guilty of it. What's more?
Super guilty. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing you should do with the FBI is basically what doctors do with patients right now. That they think basically treat them like a horse. How's that leg doing? That's what.
There's a great Family Guy sketch with that.
Oh, look at the horse. Just
the horse.
It's great. It's great. Totally good. Yeah,
totally great. And then he gets a shotgun. How's your leg now? And he's like, should I put you down? No.
Oh, please don't do it.
Let's get you to run the derby.
He turns it around and shoots him in the leg and all that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that's
all right.
The douche.
That is the douche of the week, and of course that will be today's show. We're sorry about the live stream issues. Sorry that it was only on Twitch instead of our other programs, but we're hoping that the servers for Restream will be back up next week. So you can all enjoy it on either Facebook or Twitch next week instead of just Twitch. But of course, you can follow, if you're not watching this show live, then you can do what you normally do. Comment, like, subscribe, follow everything on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and YouTube. If you're following us on our text platforms, such as Parler, Getter, Facebook, and Twitter, then you know what to do. If I have to tell you, get off those programs.
By the way, quick question for you,
Yep.
Stephen. Have you stopped posting on the podcast platforms?
It's like the response that I've been getting on the podcast platforms.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get like 2 views per video.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, I don't.
You don't think it's worth
It's
it?
just, well, it's a bit extra work.
Yeah.
To get it on those platforms.
Mhm.
And like, I can do it, but the only person that I've like actually had feedback from that listened on those platforms hasn't listened in like 4 months. So I'm just like, eh.
No, fair enough.
So if people want me to put it back on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, please let me know, because I can do it.
Yeah.
If there are people who want to listen to it on these platforms.
It is a show that that is very good, like, in audio form.
Yep. Well, if you have good data plans, you can watch it on YouTube, and you just put it in your pocket. That's what I do. Although the thing that drives me, okay, little bit of side note, I'll watch the Steven Crowder show on YouTube on my phone, and then I'll like put my headphone in my ear.
Okay.
Putting it from my hand to my pocket is a nightmare. Because YouTube, whenever it's not with any other show, it's just with Steven Crowder, and any like nudge of my phone, it'll switch to the next video.
Oh, really?
But any other show, it's just like, oh yeah, you can put it in your pocket, no problem. But if I watch Steven Crowder, it's just like, oh, you want to watch this? And I'm like, no, I just turned this on like half a second ago. What are you doing? And it's like, well, you took it out of your pocket again. Oh yeah, you select that. Okay, now you go back to where you were. Yep. Okay, good.
It's basically like
you want to watch this video? No, I don't.
YouTube is basically like, acting like...
Oh, they're acting... Yeah, they're just being a bunch of schmucks. Yeah, absolutely, truly stupid. But anyways, have a great night, everybody. We will see you on Tuesday for our regularly scheduled Tuesday News Day. Till then, have a great weekend. And Danny, sign us out.
We're the Shrewd Dudes, and we're always trying to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd? Good night, everybody.
And God bless
everyone.
Thank you, tiny Mexican senior sweetness.
Yeah, that's right.
I couldn't believe that he excused your Mexicanness. Earlier on in the show, I was commenting. Okay, little note before we finish. I was like, because you were messing up the pronunciation on something, and I was like, in the comments.
Okay.
I think it was the Hippocratic. Oh yeah, it was Hippocrates, and you're like Hippocratus, and I'm like, shame Danny for his poor pronunciation. And then literally Worm said, he's Mexican, give him a pass, and I'm like, you racist.
Hey, I do get a pass. English is my second language. So there,
he's Mexican, but he doesn't have a Mexican accent. So shame him again. All right, that's the end. See you Tuesday. That's the end. Bye bye.